What's up, guys? Welcome back to our channel. This is Jenny, and she has like 18 cars.
And this is Rachel, and she loves smelling nail polish.
I sure do. Anyway, today we have 3 special guests who are going to help us talk about Australian literature, Australian authors, slang, and how it relates to American cultures.
Oh, yeah, and their special guests today are Nate, Ash, and Sam.
Ooh, hang on. Thumbnail.
Without further ado, let's get into the show.
Alright, so I'm going to talk about Banjo Paterson and a couple of facts about Australia. So, Banjo Paterson was an Australian poet, journalist, and author, and he was born in New South Wales in 1864, and he wrote poems like On the Trek and With the Cattle, which no one's probably ever read. One of the banjo's most popular poems was The Man from Snowy River, which is basically it's basically about a bunch of men riding wild horses and really obsessing over one that can really ride the wild horses.
Okay.
He did 9 months he was in the middle of fighting, writing about what happened, what he saw. The English press really liked it, so they made him a correspondent for the International News Agency. In the First World War, Banjo drove an ambulance for the Australian Voluntary Hospital in France. He also went to Africa, China, and Egypt with the Australian Imperial Force. He was wounded in 1916 but got promoted to a captain and then went to serve in the Middle East. He pulled a lot of what he wrote in the poems and his journals, books, stuff like that from his inspiration that he got from the war. After that, he was a journalist and an editor for a lot of different Australian journals, and then he died of a heart attack in 1941. He is on the Australian $10 note. Australia has like 2.6 million feral goats. It's like out in the wild feral goats. Like the U.S. has like 2.6 million domesticated goats and like no feral goats.
Okay, so I'm going to be talking about Joan Lindsay, who was an Australian novelist, playwright, and visual artist. She published her first literary work in 1936 at age 40. It was a novel titled Through Darkest Pondaleo, which is just a guess on how to say it. Her second novel, Time Without Clocks, was published 30 years later and was a semi-autobiographical early married years to artist Daryl Lindsay. In 1967, Lindsay published her most celebrated work, Picnic at Hanging Rock, a historical novel detailing the vanishing of 3 schoolgirls. Lindsay grew up in a stable and comfortable household. She was educated by governesses, then Clyde Girls Grammar School. Her grandfather was governor and her uncle was first Chief Justice of Victoria. She served as president from 1958 to 1964 of the Arts and Crafts Society of Victoria. Now I'm going to tell you about some American and Australian culture differences from today. Australians drive on the other side of the road. So we drive on the right and they drive on the left.
Wow.
Everything is air dried. They don't use dryers for their clothes.
Or hair dryers?
They might use hair dryers. I'm not sure. But their clothes are air dried. Australians are a lot more water conscious. There's barely any free Wi-Fi in Australia. They use their cutlery different. Menus. They come as is. You can't change your order. So if you want a cheeseburger but it comes with onions or tomatoes and you don't want that, well, suck it up because you're getting it. Australia is very expensive compared to America. Insects and animals are insane, so I guess kangaroos are out there trying to kill some people or something.
Alrighty, so the 3 slang words I have are flat out, meaning really busy, runners, sneakers or trainers, and then true blue, meaning genuinely Australian. The author I chose is Peter Philip Carey. He was born in Buckus Marsh in Victoria, Australia in 1943. He studied science at the Monash University, and he While he attended there, he also wrote advertising to support himself in the early part of his career. The main focus of his literary works are on Australian identity and the historical context. He started writing short stories, and the two that are most famous are War Crimes, 1979, and The Fat Man in History, 1980. He won the Miles Franklin Award 3 times and is thought to be Australia's next contender for the Nobel Prize in Lit. Other awards he's won are the Booker Prize, the AACTA Award for Best Adapted Screenplay, and he is known for his short stories and novels. Some of the novels that have been filmed are Bliss in 1985 and Illy Wacker in 1985. And the last one was Oscar and Lucinda in 1997. Throughout all 3 of these, he uses black humor.
So I will be talking about the Aboriginals of Australia. I know we've already talked about a little about this in class, but I'm kind of going to go more in depth with it and talk more about the history and what events happened in Australia. So it was believed that the Aboriginals in Australia arrived about 70,000 years ago, and they migrated from Asia. So that was like their native land, like that was their homeland. So when the Europeans came about in the late 1700s, they kind of invaded them, and they found that these indigenous Australians were already settled there, and they had these big traditions, that they had already had this lifestyle of hunting and gathering, that they had these spiritual and artistic traditions. It's like this was their homeland that these Europeans were kind of invading. And by that time, there's about 35,000 of these indigenous Australians living there. But by the time that all these Europeans came, the population began to weaken due to more of the Europeans coming over and just bringing like diseases and conflict that caused death for these indigenous Australians. Their population started to go down, and so they started to migrate to southern Australia, which wasn't really founded to be a white colonized society, or a country I should say, because Australia is kind of landed out with 6 different states with 2 continents. Mostly like northern, eastern, and west Australia was colonized by white settlers in this mindset of like, we're gonna have this new world to be kind of like this white invasion. Except for the southern part of Australia, they had a mindset where they welcomed most people in. We all know that the Aboriginal people were treated very cruelly and poorly, and I'm also going to relate to the Aboriginals to the book that we're reading in class, which is called Following the Rabbit-Proof Fence. And so the book, just relating to what we're reading, like Molly and Daisy, talks about how they're like trying to go back to their homeland, trying to find where their parents are, and just like reconnecting, which is really, really cool because that's extraordinary that little kids like at their age did that, and it was based on a true story. But I looked up these policies and what happened back in like the 1930s and even back then like the 1700s, and what they did to half-caste people. If you don't know what a half-caste is, it's half white and half Aboriginal person. And so children born into a half-caste family, by the ages like between 4 and 3, like they were taken from their mothers. So they would, their mothers would birth their children, and the doctors would take them. And they're like, oh, like where's my kids going? And they're like, oh, we'll give your kid back. Like, don't worry about it. And they would never see their kid again. And now today, there's only about 2% of them living in Australia, which is like nothing. And when you think about it, like America was very bad with like slavery and all the other culture, but today, like we don't have to deal with that in America. Like America is such a big melting pot, and we experience and we love different cultures, and we wouldn't today have an African American person, an Asian person, Latino, any kind of race, and expect them to like adapt to like this American culture. Like we're so free and we're so able to like express our culture, which is extraordinary.
Hey guys, so I'm going to be talking about Miles Franklin, who sounds like a man, is a woman, I know. She had multiple different, like, not surnames, but like, aliases, I guess. So the long one is her full name, and it is Stella Maria Sarah Miles Franklin, the long one. And then she also went by Brent of Bin Bin, and then something in French. She was born October 14th, 1879 in Talbingo, Australia. She wrote historical fiction from a feminist and nationalist point of view. She grew up in New South Wales. She wrote My Brilliant Career, which was the same setting as Wales, and it was about the rejection of women's roles. Women's roles would be like, do the dishes, put the kids to bed,
clean the house, make the food, and she didn't like that. I don't either. Then she wrote My Career Goes Bung. I love the word bung. Anyway, so it's a sequel to the first one, and it wasn't published until 1946 because it was audacious. She moved to the U.S. in 1906 and worked as a secretary for the Women's Trade Union League, moved to England in 1915, and served as a nurse in World War I. So then she went back to Australia in 1927, so she moved around a lot. She moved around more, which I'm going to talk about. And then she wrote six chronicle novels of pioneer years in Australia. And she used the pseudonym Brent of Bin Bin. Her cousin, Edwin Bridles, proposed to her in 1905, and she said no. And then she considered marriage rabbit work. She was unnerved by American patriotism, yeehaw, and traveled around a lot. She hit a rough patch in 1930 and then published another book and won the S.H. Pryor Memorial Prize. She supported women's writers. She died September 19th, 1954.
What's up, guys? We're back. We're going to be doing some Australian slang, and I'm going to slip into my accent real quick. It'll be pretty good.
She's a lot better than what I could do. Like mine is more British. It's kind of bad, but I'm gonna try my best.
One of the words is akadaka, which is how they say AC/DC, like the band. Bludger is some lazy mooch. We all have a few
I
of
have
those.
never heard of that, but
Good on ya means nice work. And mozzie is mosquito.
my word, even though I can't say it, is how I start off, like kind of like get the vocals going, is good day. So, although means afternoon. Roo. Instead of kangaroo, just roo.
Roo.
Like man, just that roo over there.
Also, in Australia, when I was on the plane coming back from Cuba, I sat by an Australian teacher, and he said, "Oh, look, oranga."
Oranga.
Yeah, I'm oranga. So it's like A and then ranga for orangutan, and that's because my hair is red.
But I also like macas. Can you guess what macas means?
It's McDonald's.
Whoa! And Dr. Lawrence, this is for you. If you can get this one, Chrissy. What does that mean? What does that mean, Dr. Lawrence?
Oh, Christmas.
Yeah, that was not for you to answer. If you can get Lappy. Okay, Dr. Lawrence, if you can get Lappy down, you're great. If anyone else can, keep it to yourself because we're trying to get that A. You know what I mean?
I think that's it for this video. Make sure that you like and subscribe. We're going to leave a works cited, and we're going to leave some books and the link to the slang in the description box.
And stay tuned for the bloopers at the end.
Like there's a few, but not that many. But yeah, it's like walking around. I seriously think about that. Like you right now, like walking around and seeing a wild goat. I'm actually talking to you. Like not the camera, I'm talking to you. That's all I got.
All right.
What's up, guys? We're here with our next guest, Sam.
Okay, we're not doing. All right, guys. So our second guest is Sam, and she's gonna be talking about Peter Kavinsky.
Mm-hmm.
Say what I have written down.
I love you. You're so cool. Oh, bum.